But the guy with his stuff not set up. There. Actually, that's a good idea before we start. Seen this one. It's like something from a cartoon from the 1980s, or a cartoon character, cartoon actors, satire 80s. Going back maybe to the 50s, the trope of the boss man with his feet up on the desk, perhaps with a stubby cigar. This is in some recent class I have been talking about elevating the feet. So this can actually be a great activity. It's psychologically it's a position of power where you're sitting at your desk and your feet are up. You have to make sure if you do that you have some make sure you can. So it feels good, and then also helping for the circulation for your legs. So let's actually do some. You allow your feet and bring the head top up to the highest point, relax your shoulders, relax your tail. And then use the energy to bring just your hands to the center. Let everything relax. Put your mind inside the body. I give some specific instructions, and I start from the top and work my way down. But you may be able to relax everything at once. We'll start with some Qigong. I don't know, some outside noise. I don't know if you can hear that, but it should be less now. So we'll come back to talk about types. So from here, make it a stretch, do the breathing, make your feet parallel, make the connection between your feet, your knees, and your hips. Stretching. Man, nobody notices when if I wear a black t-shirt underneath my stuff, but if I wear a white t-shirt or some other kind of color, it really stands out. It looks silly. So lifting the base of the torso, connecting the tongue to the roof of the mouth internally. Making the arch of the foot like you're drawing up, like a suction cup, pulling up from the base. Inside, so if you stretch, you can use the lungs to fill the entire space, like creating a vacuum. And on the exhale, stretching out to the sides. Do 3 more going at Charlotte's pace. We only did not enough. Allow the feet to touch. So now for Tai Chi Harmony, we'll do another, that's sort of a full body exercise, the kind of breathing that we just did. So from standing here, grip your feet and sort of lock your knees into position so that they're not, you don't feel the turning. You may turn the hips just a little bit without turning the knees. Turn the lower spine, mid back, upper back, neck, head, eyes, and then your mind, the intention leads even further and come back to the center. So this is your stretch, your exercise. You can time it with the breathing. You don't have to. You can go as slow or as fast as you like, and turn as much or as little as you want. Come back to the center, relax for a second. How many feel a stretch when you're doing this? Feel it's a good stretch, right? It should open everything. So even using Tai Chi Harmony as a very simple yoga, we can open up the neck, the shoulders, the back, all of this with turning. You can take it a step further to protect your knees, just like when we do the swing hands when we turn the foot. I'm gonna let you work that, but I want you to this time give yourself a challenge. When you turn to look, I want you to see what the furthest thing you can see in the distance is. And then when you turn the other way as well, leaving your eyes to follow, to lead vision. Right? And then each time, see if you can see more. Press. We're very familiar with our surroundings. This is a place where we're at. So can you even see a few inches further, a few more leaves on the plant that's next to you? And yeah, do it without the hands up, right? This is fine. You can do it just around the spine this way. It's probably a more traditional type thing. I'm using this. Uh, if the hands are sort of locked in place here, we keep that circular effect. It prevents the potential for twisting. This is why we say don't like allow your hands to shift over to one side of the chest or the other. Instead of sliding, keep it right in the center. Then you can be sure your shoulders are turning. But if you feel that your shoulder alignment is good, making sure your neck is straight, you can turn without it. You don't have to use the hands together. But let's do the same exercise, but with a test. So when you turn the first time, check to see what you can see. And then when you turn in the same direction the second time, see if you can see further. So make a mark. Make no. And then when we come back to the center after that, take a break for a second, relax. By the way, this isn't, we're not trying to break any world records here. It should feel good, right? If you start to feel pain by turning, or if your ribs, because there's some kind of misalignment, pinching in the side, that's incorrect. It should feel like everything is open. How many between the first and second turn can see more? Right? Yeah. And so, because your intention is to go there. Previously, we're just stretching. It feels good to open the back. But how do we know we're really reaching the extent? How do we really know? It's by looking to see, and then we can test ourselves, making sure that we're really getting a stretch and not just making ourselves feel better just by turning a little bit, turn a little bit. Setting a goal helps you make sure. Now, lock your shoulders in place and then pushing up through the head top. By the way, the previous exercise we did in Tai Chi, standing in that way, we want to have the same thing. The head top needs to be pushed up. Otherwise, rotating the vertebrae could be potentially dangerous. So, stretch, feel. And remember the same breathing that we started. And then when you're really comfortable to the center. We'll do some shoulder rolls. Make these like a yoga, like a stretch. Lock your dantian in place, straighten your spine, and then have the same feeling when we're turning around the center of stretching and releasing in your shoulders and the pecs and the upper back, collarbone, shoulder blades. Breathe deep. We change directions, do some going the other way. Come back to the center. Let's turn a little bit around the waist. So the same thing, pushing up through the back of the neck. In fact, imagine pushing up through the whole back of the neck. So from the center of your spine and the back here, like you're extending from that point while we're doing this exercise. And from that point down is sinking like an anchor, dropping vertically. So breathe deep. Shoulders. Feel the weight of your arms, completely let your arms go. Then next, throw one up over the shoulder. Use this opportunity because you can make your hand keep working. You can make your hand really heavy, like a chunk of leather with some metal bits in it. Both of you are martial artists, so we talk about punching. I know Mark has been punched and kicked more times than we've ever even woken up in the morning. So this being said, with this, use that heavy hand like a sack, right? Like a metal chunk to break up that tension in the shoulder. Spine straight, pushing up through the neck, come back to the center, take a deep breath, relax. We're going to do more swing hands. So make the feet parallel. Again, it's the perspective. see with the carpet, but they're actually lined up parallel this way. And with this next one, so I want you to focus on the feeling we started doing turning. So make the back of the neck straight. It's relaxed. As if you're just sitting right on the edge of the bench. Toes, breathing deep. And then the same thing, really let your arms free fall. But for everybody, feeling that as much as this one is going, that we're not going with it. On the other, this kind of feels like the energy's traveling up, but we want it in the standing foot to actually sink down. So in this one, feel as if there's a heavy weight at the bottom from the quad, from the hips down to the leg is like a weighted, and the rest of it is like a pendulum that's going on its own. So, right, that looks, Mark, that looks better. Charlotte, that looks better. Keep your spine straight. The other thing too is because I'm wearing baggy pants, try not to get too wobbly in the knees. Maybe difficult to see. Just activate your toes to protect your knees. Feel the weight of your arms pulling all the way. Keep working, breathing all the way through here. Check to see that you have a very serious expression. And the same thing, if I really let my arms fly out, I'm really sitting into that leg. So I don't want to go with it. Right? I don't fly away with it. Instead, as those fly up, sink down directly over the heel. Both look far more stable. That's good. The next one, same thing. You can think of it as patting yourself on the back, but just like when we do the bag work and you hit the bag like an open slap, imagine your hand is like the size, the diameter of a small frying pan. And so if you imagine hitting someone across the face with a frying pan, it's really going to make a difference in their outlook for their day, right? So your hand is even better yet. It's like the center of the frying pan has these 5 little rubbery whips that go out from it. And so if you take that and just as relaxed as you can be, slap someone across the face with it, right? This is dangerous. Like if you hit enough acupressure points in one shot, you can knock somebody, it will reset the system, right? So this kind of slapping, palming technique is very powerful. So we can practice it on ourselves to see if we can see what it feels like. And that's when we're doing this next exercise, you can leave the hand open like you're patting yourself on the back. And the same thing here, allowing this to hit like you're hitting the bag, right? Feel it. We could talk about the gallbladder meridian running through this area. We could talk about putting chi into our lungs to invigorate and generate power in our lungs by hitting this way, and talk about the small intestine meridian that crosses over this way and opening that. So Mark has the right idea. Keep working. Use the power, because in most of my classes, we have some people to study Tai Chi for health and longevity. They're not necessarily interested in the martial arts. But here, if you can condition your body using very basic training, try to hit in just a slightly different spot and mind their central. So, okay, hang on, everybody take a break. If you can't reach, that's okay. Just go to the point where you can without adjusting your spine. Don't change your structure. This is for anybody. Don't change the posture to try to reach the extent. In fact, just use the spine as the gauge. If we're not relaxed and open enough, to really reach over, reach this way, just go to as far as you can, even if it stops to here, right? You don't even have to do the hip. The key, one of the keys for this one is just rotating the spine forward. We said we use this one in the Pete rock to rock the fence post in the sand, right? The same thing with this one. If we have our spine as our center post, this is just turning it in the soil, right? In the dirt, sand, wherever it's embedded. So the action of the hitting stuff is sort of secondary to this feeling of turning. And then we can use it as a Tai Chi exercise to, if you can hit, steer the energy, later apply the chi to a jing situation, focus on your neck and your upper back. We come back to the center. Let's continue turning circles around the hips. Remember the hips and where the joints to the pelvis and the spine, all that connecting tissue through there is the largest set of connective tissue. So imagine where all of it comes together by relaxing and pushing it at change direction, having it stretching all that material. Next, we're going to do a little bit of bending at the waist. Make your feet parallel. Push your tailbone back and away. Release your spine like you're unrolling your back. Relax your shoulders. Relax your head and neck. Let gravity do the work. So pull your tailbone higher. Working, gripping the ground. See if you can relax a little bit more. Do the deep breathing. And then check the same thing. Now we'll have a test on this one. See how far, where your reach goes, what you can see with your eyes, what level you're staring at your legs, your knee, your shin, something. And make a mental note of it. And then when you're feet active in the lower body so we don't have imbalance, inflating, breathing all the way up. And when you reach the top, let everything relax. So while we're right, we're gonna take a break to breathe for a minute. And what I want you to do is this time see if you can relax your back a little bit more to get more stretch. So the same way we did a little bit of a test turning this way and that way, the same thing as we fold forward. So make your feet parallel, grip the ground. By the way, on this one specifically, when we're coming back up, I always talk about gripping the ground because we can create an imbalance where the energy is rising up in the body, and suddenly we have all this chi in the head, and it can make people can become dizzy, right? So make sure that you're ready to do weightlifting, some squats with your legs, and you keep that sort of feeling as you unroll the spine. So the bottom half is weighted. So once again, let's follow Mark's example. Get to the business. Grip the feet. Push your tailbone back and away. Unroll your spine. Let everything relax. And check. Can you relax even more? Can you stretch just a little bit further by releasing your back? Remember to breathe. Keep your feet active. The abs inflating, expand all the way, breathing all the way in. And then what's next? Knees. So we'll practice some qigong while we warm up the knees. Take a second to warm up your hands. And this is a basic exercise in transferring energy from one part of the body to the other, so that you become accustomed to it, used to it. So when you want to Reiki with your pet, with your friends or family, something like this, is When you have the heat, feel the energy transfer to your kneecaps. See if you can identify all of the tendons, the ligaments, the like flat panels that go over top of the kneecap, and up the sides. Breathing deep. So now we're going to do the same thing again. But we're going to do the second time. We're going to do something different. Is once you feel like you've transferred the heat to your knee, right after a few seconds, you may feel the energy drain. Practice gripping your toes and feel the change that happens in your knee. And then work your way over. Do the pinky toe and do the ring toe. Activate the whole thing. And feel the change that happens in your kneecap. Grip even tighter. Twice as hard as you think you are. Remember to breathe while we're doing this exercise. And then keeping your feet flat in the same position, let your toes, let everything relax. And feel the change that happens underneath your hands. And then when you're ready for breathing, stand up straight. So we can actually recalibrate every time. So feet together, hands together, and then adjust. So pull the posture all the way up. Relax the shoulders all the way down. Sink the tailbone as if you're sitting, like you're waiting somewhere and there's a half wall and it's set at the exact right height where you can stand and just place the edge of your butt right over the rail, right over the chair, and sit so that your tailbone is sinking and your head top is rising. Let's go back to a little bit more stretching. So pressing. So feel the stretch. Push your foot until you feel that it's completely stretched. Then pull it back all the way to the nose until it's completely relaxed. And then push between those two extremes. So again, the same thing, extend the toes. So you feel a stretch. It may turn into a stretch on the bottom of the foot. That's okay. And then bring it back as much as you can. Tilt it up. You'll feel it in the back of your calf. Changing the other side, the same thing. We're going to do both on both sides twice. So push. Then breathe. Then the same thing, try to have the correct alignment with your standing foot. To get something. Just be before we continue, anyone have questions, thoughts? What do you like to work on? Let's actually work on something that has some Bhagavad style stepping from the third section, the four corners exercise. And I want to talk about corners from the angle of each way. We'll turn to martial arts. My teacher taught one lesson about corners from Feng Shui. We went to a restaurant one time. Let's do some exercise while we talk. We'll just practice Jin Chi to lead. So grip your standing foot, and then relax your hips, your knee, pointing the toe towards the ground. Keep this leg either level or close to, and then change it. And so one time we went to a restaurant, And there was a group meeting at the restaurant, and we got there late, and someone tried to sit him at the corner of the table. And usually we're all crowded around, and he looked at the wait person. He said, "No, couldn't sit there." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, "Look at the corner." He said, "When I'm sitting, it's aimed right at my sternum." He says, "The idea for feng shui is, I think maybe, you know," he said, "he's a Tai Chi teacher, but he can't control somebody, the wait person falls into him, and now he bumps into the corner of the table, right? So don't sit in the corner. It's a dangerous circumstance. Even sometimes we're working, you're leaning over the desk. We don't pay attention because if you fall, we have this. So feng shui is about identifying. And then if we want to talk about corner from the aspect of boxing from martial arts, is boxing is a sport. So they have corners in the ring. If they have a circle, it's a coliseum, it's something different. Your opponent can run away from you indefinitely. They can just run in a circle. Like there's a, I think Monty Python some skit where the opponent wears the champion out by running, so something like this. So the same. If there was no corner, it's difficult to corner the opponent when there's no punch. That's why they don't have circular boxing. If there's a circle, you can force your opponent into the corner and do the thing that you want to hit back as a boxer. So the same applies for us from martial arts. We shouldn't find ourselves in the corner. We should be aware of our surroundings because corner is a bad place. There's only, if I'm in the corner, right left, the only way out is over. So uh, we know don't get into the corner, right? That's for boxing. That's a boxing sport. And for our own personal self-defense, we have to have some for us. So let's do the four corners exercise. Then we'll do the form, and then we'll come back and talk about four corners. Before we start, questions, thoughts. From the center, if we pick a space, we can start from Tai Chi Han people. We don't have to. If we hook and we have some turning this way, my feet are parallel and then on a plane here, and then I'm turning to the corner. So with my hands and feet parallel, the first one is to catch with my right. Then my left hand comes underneath to support. This is almost like Bob was leaning against fourth. And then from here, I turn my hands pressing. So for those that where there's a posture called leaning against fourth, things like this, the type of form that I teach has a lot of Bob work built into it. So this first posture, when we're coming from here, scoop is why do we have the scoop? In Tai Chi, if you read the classics, it says there's no flowery movement. There's no extra movement. People say, "Oh, it looks so flowery." There's no flowery movement. The reason that there's a loop for the first part is because the movement is continuous from the last one. So I don't hook and whip and then start to catch and do this. Just like a pen writing across the surface of paper, it doesn't stop. So the loop is to continue to make sure that we have the power to lift up the thing that we need to. And then this hand also looping to come underneath. And then this is where it gets weird. The power loops into ourselves and then turns back out. So this one is, yeah, right? That's correct. So the idea is creating a series of, we're hooking the, so we scoop and scoop. This hand is in out. And then if you turn the palms in, and if you shift your central line, you turn your waist. So the whole body, the legs from the feet, pressing into the point. Let me go from different angles so you can see. Hook, side, scoop, step. It's once I scoop and step to here, I'm going to turn my palms and turn my base. So if we use my carpet as a north, south, east, and west, we call this The four corners is actually turned. We're going northeast, northwest, southwest, south. So from here, the first corner is literally going to the point, just like we had talked about. And then when I turn to the next, you see this arm, just like the second section when we have back and flying, is the opponent is there. So when I press to see their position, then when I turn, when I flip to their weapon and get underneath it. And then this other hand is coming up to support. So let's go from 0, 1, 2. Let's go from here. Scoop, scoop, looking for it, step back, scoop to get underneath, and then turn the waist, turn the palms, press to the corner. Next, these hands, they're going to circle. Up. So my center line is shifting. I'm turning my waist by extending my leg. My shoulders are turning, my forearms are rotating, and my spine is turning. Let's see. Go from hook, side whip, scoop, scoop, looking for the point, step back, open it. And when we open it, it's not this wide thing. I'm opening it by turning around my forearm this way so that my center is covered. I have something to cover my so I turn, scoop, and then third. So let's look at third corner because that transition is a little bit different. I think of this one like in baseball, the Major League Baseball pitchers have a windup before they do the pitch, right? And they're using their whole body. So in this one, we're closing, and then so if I go from the third corner, I'll go from a different city. See, we call this the third corner, and I'm pressing here. Right? My next one is power is coming from the third corner. Closing, maybe blocking that here. And then next is make contact. Sports. The last one is to advance. So there's this feeling of scoop, return. Right. This is the idea. And so Tika, don't open. It's open too much here because if I'm trying to face my this may not have after before. Let me be clear about something, right? This is for martial arts application. So I like to teach the Tai Chi with Kung Fu in it. You can make it open. You can tie it to a yoga. You can make it into a stretch, right? Like in the Taoism, they call Dao Yin. But you should know why not to and when to on your own, or if you're uh, teach it that way. But as an advanced practitioner, you can use this kind of thing to do a stretch, right? To turn it into some other type of thing. But as martial artists, we should be thinking about real-time application. Yeah, go ahead. Ask a question if you have a question. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So let's look at this one here. In Bible, if we have a square step, right? You know, we do step shoulder width wide, shoulder width deep. In Tai Chi form, we're doing this kind of this robot movement right from here. But in martial arts, nobody's using that. We take that square and we turn it to the corner. So now my feet are in line. You can see my feet. They're in line this way. And they're facing 45 degrees. And it's here. And then this posture for leaning against force is like this. So my hands literally connected, touching my elbow. And we want to form this sharp triangle. Remember, we said in self-defense that we have this triangle right here, right, where a lot of your power is. But if we want to keep something out in front of us for the opponent, right, we have an opponent out in front of us, we can have this type of posture, very defensive, very powerful. And so we pass through that moment when we step, scoop here. This is leaning against force. And then I turn my fingers and palms in to create the wind and unwind. And then next, I'm looking first. I look over my left shoulder. This is also, by the way, this is technique, because as you get into a situation where there's multiple people, if you look to that direction, they think you're going to that direction. So there's a head fake. But it's also a check, because we're going to do something dramatic. We're going to turn our back to the opponent for just a split second. But when we arrive, we have the advantage. So for the first corner, that check first, it's to gauge the incoming speed of the opponent. What is he doing? Because when I look here, in a very narrow format, I may turn very large depending on what his trajectory is. In the form, we want to just use the square grid, right, and turning it slightly so that you take a calculated even step, right? It's measured, everything's mathematical. When you play the form freestyle, right, like when you're doing your own thing, you just want to do it, you can experiment with many different things, but you should understand what's happening. So when I look, the set here, so that I turn backwards to the opponent. And this is, by the way, this is the premise behind Bhagwan, is we sometimes take a longer direction, a longer turn, but arrive faster. So you can see this in nature. Sound doesn't sound incorrect with mathematics. A longer route taking more time actually takes some. If there's perhaps a loop in there, or a spiral, right? There's some hawks in Japan, this Japanese hawks called the Hayabusa. And they can go over 200 miles an hour, but they don't fly down this way. They form a gigantic spiral and they get faster as they go in. So this is the same idea. Sometimes the straight line, listen, is if I'm here to turn, step, and lose a chest move, because if I want to turn conventional, I change my weight, placing this way to turn back here, I might be hit, right? So this one does the avoid is a more unconventional movement. Is once I've done this, I'm avoiding and protecting as I get to here, right? So as I turn to the opponent, I can do my thing. Let's. Does anyone have questions, thoughts on four corners? Yeah, go ahead.
Just wanted to review briefly the different nature of the first one is
right,
and the second term is not a catch.
Yeah. So the analogy that I use for this one is, imagine something is closing, and you want to prevent it from closing. Something a top down. Everybody knows how a car hood or car trunk closes, or if you've ever seen like a top-down freezer, right? Like one of these storage freezers that has a lid that closes this way. Sometimes when you go to the ice cream shop, they have a individual unit that lifts up and you can reach in. So you want to think about something like that with a lid that's happening a little bit higher. And this can be the opponent coming in here. It can be their weapon that's coming this way. But what we're going to do is on each of them, we're going to use the hands to do something. So when I do the whip, the first one, I'm catching the lid, right? Catch the hood of the car so that it can't close, right? We want to prevent that from happening. And then the side that steps in, the same thing. It's supporting. And now this other hand is going to take the role of turning the top. In fact, as it's supporting, I'm going to stick to it. and roll my forearm up underneath it so I can use my whole forearm to support the lid. And then once that's supported, this other hand is free. And we can do anything that we want to do. Reach in and take the ice cream. Reach in, maybe it's a mochi dispenser. The analogy that I used to use, like I said, being into cars, is imagine you have an expensive pair of sunglasses sitting on top of the carburetor, and the hood is about to close, and you don't want to lose the thing. But you can make it anything. Like I said, reach into the freezer and get yourself whatever you want. You hold it, brace it here, and then by the time you get there. And so now what's the next one? I look, I see the hood is closing, it's going to come down, right? So here, I'm going to go all the way around the hood and scoop up to get underneath it, and then use my forearm to brace. So that's, make sure that that can't close underneath. So if you, go ahead, oh, next one. All right, so the next one. And so from here, the same thing. The hood, the panel is going to close in this direction. I'm going to make sure it doesn't swap my foot when it closes. I'm going to go around it to get underneath it. Same hand, support and brace. I'm going to turn to press here. And then the fourth one is just like the second transition. It's open, go around everything to get underneath it. Because the thing may have a point on the end of it, right? If it's like a spear you're dealing with.
No, the same except for watching one.
Okay, so let's go back to, let's transition from number 4 to number 1, because you'll see the same transition to 3. This movement is actually a continuous thing, right? So let's look. If I have first corner, scoop, scoop, press. Look, scoop, press. Next corner, scoop, press, and then turn next corner. What would we do next to go back to number 1? It's a repeat of 3. Bring the feet together, scoop underneath. There's 1. Head check. Scoop. This is called pitcher's wind up. Is getting up here, and this is turning backwards. Press. 4-1 is pitcher's wind up to the first corner. And then looking, this is turning backwards. This is the wind pitch, and then turning backwards, and then wind up, pitch. Makes more sense, right? When it's continuous, you see there's that transition actually happens somewhere else too, but we don't show the connect, we don't connect the dots that way. But it's important to know, because that transition from 2 to 3 is sort of kind of a money movement, right? So if we're here, this is very basic. It should feel like in the Beyond when we have the last 2 blocking movements. We have this. We block. This is the same type of movement. When I step here, come back up underneath it, right? And so, again, I'm doing something more dynamic. You can change it how you like. This posture, by the way, if we use a bag, we can examine a couple of ways. So, here is if I'm pressing to this corner as we go here, right? And I put something on the way, and then I come back up underneath. The next one I can use right. But if I stay connected to the opponent here, the block. I keep the end to the side, and there's a step associated with it as well, right? So if I'm doing my 4th corner or the third to 2 to 3, right, I can close my step, get way inside to the opponent's gate. Carry your square with you. Instead of doing like a yoga, right? Maybe for the demonstration when you go to compete and you want to show how flexible you are. If we have this, maybe we could do this kind of posture. It looks very fancy, right? But in martial art, if you do that in a fight, somebody will jump on you and break your legs. It's super dangerous. You can't. So what's the answer? Is carry your square with you, right? We talk about square step, and everybody thinks, it's just beginner idea. But later we find that square, the square follows us, right? So when we take a step, when I step to the corner from here, instead of leaving my foot, you can't, right? We practice X stepping like that, where sometimes we leave the foot, sometimes we bring it with us. In this particular case, for boxing, for martial art, you have to make it square following, because now the action is here, right? And so if I scoop here, I need to have my foot here. If it's over there, somebody will jump on me and break my leg backwards. Right? It's very dangerous. So, looks good for the show if you want to put on the fancy thing. But for boxing, this is very similar to in Sun style Tai Chi. They bring the foot very close together. In this one, we just want to have the square, right? And I think the term that TC would use was carry the square, right? Bring the square with you wherever the front foot is leading, the front foot carries it. Or in the case of retreat, right? If we step back for I still have my square step, but the rear one is the driver. So it pulls the square back, and then the other foot has to keep up with it, right? So one more thing before we go, a reminder about timing. I don't want to get too meta about things, but timing for this. Remember, by this stage in the third section, the student should know about fan for back, which means there is no one hand isn't faster than the other; they're the same speed, and so the timing for this for corners is which is yu chuan so remember it means the delicate lady working at the shelves, and it has to do with the hands and the movement. It's all happening. So the scoop, nothing second. But teach it as supporting the hood from touching something valuable underneath it, because we can say 1, 2, 3. But that's 3 separate. This is like a kid connecting the dots, right? We want to have just one spiral that makes the correct shape. So we go 1, 2, 3. It's all one movement. There isn't one faster than the other. Everything arrives at the same time. So this is the practice, by the way, because we're not coordinated. We have to take the time to do the thing. So this is one exercise you can work on continuously, right? Don't try the other direction. It's confusing. I'm gonna practice that. By the way, it's time. We didn't get a chance to do the form. We did get a chance to do a lot of Tai Chi. Questions, thoughts, comments? Bring the head top up to the highest point. Go back to Tai Chi harmony. And then take a deep breath. Pushing up the back of the neck. Relax your tailbone. Lifting at the base. Connect the tongue to the upper palate. And we can even eliminate saying have a half smile as minimum, but have a pleasant expression on your face. When you see the pictures of the Buddha, maybe there's some sects that put the teeth and have the snarl, but usually depicted as very peaceful. So the half smile is maybe just one part of that. Even move your mind into your dantian and imagine all the energy, all the movement by emotion collecting that. That means you can relax the tailbone. And that also means you can relax your neck. Everything's supported by the chi. So breathing deep, looking at inwards towards your dantian. Take a second to smile to yourself. Regardless of whatever you think about yourself, without saying anything, just smile to yourself. And then breathing deep, the same way, take a second to give thanks to yourself, regardless of your self-opinion. Take one more last deep breath. And Mark, email me about a good time to get together. Yeah?
I will do that.
Have a great night. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.